The political crisis in Ukraine continues to worsen as more and more people get caught up in the corruption scandal. The corruption scandal has been dubbed Operation Midas, as one of the key figures in it, Midas, it was discovered had solid gold toilet seats in one of his apartments. Beyond him, it's caught up a bunch of cabinet ministers that have been forced to resign, other senior officials, but more recently, Yermak has been forced to step down. One of Zelensky's, basically his right-hand man, someone he's known long before he became president, and the former head of the office of the president of Ukraine, which I would imagine is similar to a chief of staff in the United States. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, why now? Why is suddenly NABU and SAPO, the big anti-corruption agencies, doing all these prosecutions? They've been doing basically nothing for the last couple of years. I mean, it's well known that Ukraine's extremely corrupt. Why all of a sudden are all these big heavy hitters being taken down? Did they suddenly grow a conscience? Did they suddenly grow a spine? Did they suddenly decide that we have to just press ahead and do what's best for Ukraine, regardless of the political costs? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people within these organizations who do believe that. I firmly think that they could not have done that unless someone gave them the green light. That is, there was some sort of prime mover behind this whole thing that set things into motion for the purposes of taking down Zelensky's government, or at least a lot of senior officials surrounding him. And so I put together a list of possible suspects. So we're going to kind of combine Blue's Clues and Scooby-Doo here, and we're going to go through the list of people who might be behind this whole Operation Midas anti-corruption thing and the political crisis in Ukraine. I should also note that Ukraine is currently going through a military crisis. Pokrovsk happened. There's the encirclement at Myrnohrad. There's Kupiansk. There's the movement in Zaporozhye and Kherson. Basically, Russia's advancing all along the front, and we've had a couple really bad defeats with large numbers of troops being trapped within pockets. So to me, it's hard for me to believe that these two things aren't correlated, that this political crisis isn't in some way related to the military crisis. So I did a list of all of the possible suspects, and we are going to go through them based on 4 criteria. The opportunity, that is, do they have the actual power and ability to make this happen? How much can they actually get involved with this? How much are they capable of driving this whole anti-corruption investigation? Next, we have motivation. That is, I think, pretty straightforward. Who would have something to gain from this political crisis? Because some people might have the ability to do this, but they have no real reason to actually carry it out. We then have involved. So involved means that they didn't spearhead it, like they weren't the main people who got this thing going, but they're involved with it. They're aware of it, they're contributing or cooperating with it in some form. So maybe they aren't able to tell NABU and SAPO to start arresting people, but they are actively providing them with documentation and other support. And then finally, we have prime mover. That is, who initiated this whole thing and who is the primary party controlling it or providing cover to it. So we're going to start off with the low likelihood. These are people who might be involved, but I don't think are, or at least aren't the main suspects. So the first one we have is Russia. I'm sure some people will say this is Russia's fault, that this is disinformation, that Yermak and Midas and all these other people are like stunning examples of public service, and this is entirely a psyop. But realistically, Russia doesn't control Ukraine's anti-corruption investigation. It doesn't control the funding to them. They have basically no influence over it. Now, would Russia like it if they could trigger some sort of political collapse in Ukraine as a result of corruption problems, maybe. I guess the counter argument would be is they like the severe corruption because it makes their job easier and it delegitimizes the Zelensky government. At the same time, though, total chaos helps the war effort. So there is a motivation there. Were they involved with this? Probably not. Maybe they sent some hacked documents in, but no one's going to take anything they have to say seriously. So I just don't think that they were really involved with it. I'm just including them for completion's sake. Okay, next we have the EU. Now, since US aid got shut down, my understanding is Nabu and Sapo have primarily been funded by the European Union. So they do have some influence over them. They do provide the money. There is an opportunity there. Now, is there a motivation? No. When this whole thing started, the Europeans came out and demanded that it stop, that we can look at this later. It's not worth it. We have to focus on defeating Russia. So there's no motivation there. If anything, they want this whole thing to stop and go away. So I don't think they're involved or they were the main mover. We have the ultra-nationalists in Ukraine who still have some political influence, especially within the military and security environment. Once again, I'm just including them for completion's sake. I don't really know what their motivation would be for removing Zelensky unless they're afraid that he's going to eventually cave in and sign some sort of peace treaty. But I think they realize that whoever replaces Zelensky may very well be less committed to their no compromise position. So I really doubt that the ultra-nationalists were involved with it. Okay, getting into people who might actually be involved with it, we have Nabu and Sapo, the anti-corruption agencies themselves. So I put them there because I don't think that they were the initiators of this. I don't think they suddenly decided one day to go, okay, let's do our job now. Let's actually look into the corruption. It's been widely known since forever. Ukraine's an incredibly corrupt country. It's run by oligarchs who are involved in all kinds of shady stuff. And the fact that it's happening now, and it's specifically happening to Zelensky's inner circle, makes this whole thing very sussy. So I put opportunity medium because they technically do have the ability to investigate. I put involvement medium because I'm sure there is a lot of people within these organizations who hate the current situation, who hate the corruption, who legitimately want to do something about it and took this as their opportunity. So I think that is a possibility. I think it's very unlikely that they were the initiators, but once again, they're on the list for completion's sake. Okay, we have Zelensky doing an auto coup. He's removing everybody around him that he views as a threat to his power. Obviously, he has a very high opportunity to do this. He's the president. He has a lot of influence over the anti-corruption organizations. He tried to take them over earlier this year. Why he would do this, though, I don't really know. It doesn't make sense to me. If people were going to be if he was going to be like arresting and taking down political rivals, you'd think Poroshenko and Klitschko would be the first people that he would go after and not his own guys. I don't know. This reeks of like some sort of 4D chess plan. I don't really know what the motivation would be. So I don't think Zelensky's involved with the prime mover. Maybe at some point he will throw the rest of his inner circle under the bus in order to remain president. But no, I don't think that he's involved. Okay, and finally on the low likelihood, we have Budanov, the Ukrainian intelligence, and the Ukrainian military. Now, I specifically put Budanov because he's kind of been on the outs. He's been going off the plantation a lot. Recently, he got into trouble when it turned out that he was meeting secretly with Russian intelligence in the Gulf states. That was after this whole thing started, but it might be an indication of something. I'm not sure. He might be afraid that he's going to get removed. I think he has friends in the CIA and some other three-letter agencies. But the whole military intelligence apparatus has a lot of motivation to go along with this. Maybe I should have put that as very high. They've been complaining since the start of the war and since before it that the immense corruption and incompetence of the leadership has made their job exponentially harder than it really should have been, and it's already should be pretty rough. We've seen just money meant for munitions or maintenance or spare parts get pocketed. We've seen just various arms shipments getting sold on the international market, and the ruling class keeping the profits. The emblematic one that I always bring up is how they were supposed to be building like all these border fortifications in Sumy region, and the governor, whoever just stole all the money, none of them got built, and the Russians were just basically able to walk in. And the commander of that got really angry. And if you follow really any of the Ukrainian Telegram channels, you will see that soldiers will come out on a regular basis, even officers, and constantly complain about this. We also have all the cases like Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Pokrovsk, Kursk, where they get thrown into these like suicidal campaigns. They aren't allowed to withdraw. Sersky is despised. A lot of people in the military are very angry with how things are going. Now, they don't have control over Nabu and Sapo, so I don't think they initiated this. I don't think they were the prime mover. I would not be surprised. In fact, I think it's almost certain that when they caught wind that this was coming, they just started dumping all the like dirt that they had. Just every example of corruption, all the fraudulent paperwork, that they just went to Nabu and Sapo and just slammed it on the table, because this is their chance to get back at the people who they blame with some legitimacy for screwing over the war. A lot of these guys have seen friends of theirs, their boys die as a result of rampant corruption and incompetence. And so would they be involved with helping to clean house if they got the chance? Yeah, I think 100%. I just don't think that they are in the position to initiate this. Okay, so moving to the people who probably were behind it. We have the domestic opposition, the opposition parties, Poroshenko, Klitschko, Yulia Tymoshenko, I think her name is, the former female president, or was she prime minister? It doesn't matter. But just the other people within Ukraine who are not members of Zelensky's party. So they have some opportunity. They have friends in the West that they can talk to. They have some ability as parliament members, but they don't have executive power. Zelensky's party has a majority. I think it might actually be a supermajority. I just don't see how they could compel Nabu and Sapo to do this investigation, to kind of set this whole thing in motion. Now, they have a lot of motivation to do it. If they get, this is all very hurtful to Zelensky and his government, and they're trying to push for some sort of national unity government that will give them a seat at the table. Or even if they can get rid of Zelensky, then Poroshenko or Klitschko can become president, and then they can start stealing money. There's a lot of people in Ukraine who would benefit if Zelensky was to go. So I think it's very likely that they're involved in some way. Either they've been, like the military, just giving evidence and cooperating and just kind of setting this whole thing up. I think it's extremely likely, almost certain, that they were involved. But I think it's a very low chance that they're the ones who initiated this whole thing, and are the driving force behind it. We have Zelensky's party, the Servant of the People. So there is an opportunity there. They control the government through the Rada. A lot of just other important positions. Obviously, the people around Zelensky are also part of the party. They have connections in the West. So they're in a position where they could get Nabu and Sapo to do this. The opportunity and the ability is largely there. The issue is motivation. Now, it's possible that they're motivated to do this. The idea might be that they see Zelensky as a sinking ship, and they want to get rid of him and put someone else in power. There's some sort of internal power struggle. Maybe they want resources distributed differently. Maybe some of them are more realist and they think if they remove Zelensky, they can have a peace deal. So I think it's possible, and it's likely that some of them are involved. I just I put them this high because they're kind of like the moderately high case. It's possible it's likely that some part of them are involved, but I just don't see there being a strong enough motivation to make them the primary suspect. Okay, and so we head into the two that I think it probably is. The United States. Likelihood high. I probably should have put very high here, but yeah, the U.S. basically runs Ukraine at this point. They're paying the salaries of a lot of the civil servants. Ukraine is completely and totally infested with the CIA and other intelligence agencies. There are American military advisors everywhere. Ukraine is more or less a proxy state in a lot of ways for the U.S. at this point in time. I don't think there's any possibility that the U.S. didn't know this was coming and didn't have some role in it. I don't think Nebu and Sapo could have acted unless they at least had the rubber stamp from the U.S., let alone if the U.S. was the ones who initiated it. And I think it's extremely likely that they were the ones who initiated it. So why do I say that? Trump is in a really bad spot at the moment. He keeps bungling this whole thing. The whole, are we going to have a peace deal or are we not, is a mess. Are we going to keep Zelensky on? Trump can't make up his mind, and the situation seems to be getting worse and worse and spiraling, and we're getting closer to that fall of Saigon moment where the American embassy gets evacuated in Kyiv as the Russians close in. So it's possible when Trump found out about this. Now, my understanding is I think this investigation might have begun before Trump came to power, but I'm sure there's always investigations going on. But anyways, as far as Trump goes, this is probably his best opportunity to get rid of Zelensky and try to force a peace treaty and try to abdicate responsibility for this shit show. What do I mean by that? If Trump is able to latch on to the fact that most of the senior officials in the Ukrainian administration were extremely corrupt and incompetent, and as a result of these people getting removed, Zelensky eventually has to resign or step down, or he gets overthrown in a party coup or by the opposition or something like that. It's Trump's way of removing Zelensky without having to do it himself, without having to flex America's muscles and removing the illusion that Ukraine is an independent country. Because in this case, like, he can spin it, oh, okay, well, I thought Zelensky was a good guy. I wanted to work with him. But these homegrown anti-corruption agencies found out that all this shady stuff was going on. Even if he doesn't want to implicate Zelensky, he could go, well, it's just he's too damaged. All these people around him were corrupt and stealing money. And we really want someone with ties to all of this running the country. And so if Zelensky gets removed as a result of this, it gives Trump plausible deniability. Hopefully, I think he hopes whoever succeeds Zelensky will agree to a peace deal. It also allows him to offload blame for why the entire war went the way it did. He can say with a little bit of justification that we gave Ukraine all the support they needed. It's just that these corrupt oligarchs stole all the money. They stole the money, they stole the military aid, they were extremely incompetent, and it wasn't our fault. It wasn't that Russia was strong. It was, I guess it's the new version of the stabbed in the back myth. Given the number of people who are fleeing to Israel or are likely to flee to Israel as a result of these investigations, there's an additional level of irony to this being the new stab in the back myth. But Trump is gonna take egg on his face regardless of what happens. Regardless of the situation, when Ukraine has to make concessions, he's going to get blamed and he's going to look bad. If he can offload a significant amount of that onto the corrupt oligarchs in Ukraine, that'll save a lot of damage from him. He'll still take damage. And then the whole thing, why was he giving money to corrupt people, comes up. But it obfuscates the issue. and it deflects attention away from him. And the people who are predisposed to like Trump and to hate Zelensky will buy this in a second. The reality is the war wasn't lost because of corruption. It certainly didn't help. It certainly made a lot of scenarios worse and got a lot of brave men killed. The issue is manpower, is industrial production. There's a lot that Russia sees this as an existential war, but the West doesn't. I mean, you can go through. There's a whole bunch of other reasons why it was going to turn out this way, regardless of corruption. But the thing that's good about this narrative is it's true. It's widely known that the Ukrainian upper class is kleptocratic and corrupt. As I said earlier, the military, who's still well trusted, complains about it constantly. Average Ukrainians complain about it. It's a good target because it is a guilty party that did contribute to the defeat. So I think Trump has a very good motivation to go along with this, and I think this is probably his best chance for an out. And so that brings us to the most likely scenario wherein there's some sort of combination of domestic opposition, either from Zelensky's party or the other parties or both. And they've kind of come to an agreement that they're just going to throw Zelensky under the bus and everyone in his administration, and everyone else is going to be able to get away with the bad decisions that they made. And we're just going to blame everything on the corrupt, sleazy oligarchs that no one likes anyways. So everyone makes out. Someone else gets to be president. Poroshenko maybe gets brought into a national unity government and he's able to start skimming some off the top. Trump gets his political cover. Basically, all of the people who have the most to gain from Zelensky being removed and this corruption purge going on are just working in concert. And I don't know who approached who or if there was just convergent interests, but I think that's by far the most likely outcome, that the U.S. government is working with someone in Ukraine, either the Servant of the People Party or the opposition parties or both, to set this whole thing up and to get rid of Zelensky. And I think that's by far the most likely possibility. I think the second most, like I said, is that the U.S. is just doing this, that they aren't working directly with the domestic opposition. The domestic opposition are involved, but it's not part of a big plan or conspiracy. So those who are I think the likely suspects, I hope people found this interesting. I hope I didn't come across as being too tinfoil hatty or conspiratorial. I just tried to go through who had the opportunity, who had the motivation, and then realistically, who is likely behind it. So God bless everyone. More exciting content to come, and I'll talk to you guys later.